Welcome to the Under Construction Podcast with me, Martin Williams. Here we talk about how to build or rebuild your life one step at a time. Let's get to work. And welcome to the Under Construction Podcast. I'm your host, Martin Williams. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. You may do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. All the links to the podcast can be found at guidedexpressions.com/podcast with an S. Today I wanted to talk to you about investing in multiple ventures. So there's a scripture, there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about the importance of investing in multiple ventures because you don't know what disasters will strike the land. And so I just want to back up a little bit. A lot of times people don't know what to do, right? They feel like they have so many ideas and they're not sure what direction to go in, which is understandable because I certainly have been through that before in my life as well. And you get to a place where you have all these ideas, all these different paths you can go down, and what mostly happens is that people never choose anything. They remain stuck, and it's kind of a vicious cycle where you get inspiration, you get these ideas, and then you never do anything, you never decide to do anything, you never follow through, and you're kind of back at square one because you don't have any of the experience, any of the wisdom, which is one of the things that brings wealth, right? You don't have the, just going through it, you just don't have it because you never took that step forward. So I want to help with that a little bit. It's very natural to have more than one idea. It's very natural to have multiple things that inspire you, right? If only one thing inspires you, that could be a dull life, right? If only one thing inspires you, then, that's great. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but for me, I think life is more exciting when multiple things inspire you, right? So I'm inspired by multiple things. I'm inspired by personal development. I'm inspired by sports. I'm inspired by health. I'm inspired by, writing and, more creative things. So there are a lot of things that I like to do. You don't have to choose one thing. You don't have to, spend all this time trying to figure out what's the one thing that I need to do. You don't have to do that. I think it's more important for you to invest in multiple things. So let me go back to that scripture in the Bible. It's in Ecclesiastes 11, verse 2, where it says, invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. Now, we live in a time where, we're going through a pandemic, we're going through a recession in the United States. And even though I do believe that every person has a personal economy, that the entire country doesn't have to go through a recession, there are a lot of people who have done very well in 2020 financially, myself included. So it doesn't mean that we all go through it at the same time and in the same way, but just for, the sake of this particular podcast, most people are going through some form of a economic downturn. So when things like that happen, you don't want to just be invested in one thing. You don't just want to be dependent on your job, because if you're dependent on your job and that job goes away, you're in trouble. You're in, considerable amount of strain because now you got to figure out how to replace that job income, right? And a lot of people in the United States, I think the last survey I saw, somewhere around 70% of people in this country are living from paycheck to paycheck, meaning that they do not have enough savings to make it 1 month without their paycheck. And if that's you, it's certainly understandable, and you're certainly not in the minority, as I just pointed out, being in that situation. But just because you're not in the minority doesn't mean it doesn't need to change, because it does. Especially if you're the sole breadwinner in your family and nobody else is working, you, above all others, really need to have more than one thing going on that brings in money to your household every month. So when I say that you should invest in 8 ventures, what do I mean? We're talking about, putting money aside, putting money in the stock market, putting money in something where, you can like earn a dividend every month. But even before you start earning a dividend, something that's not, going away out of your life, like money that isn't going out of your life, right? So let's say you invest $1,000 in the stock market, and you may only make $100 a month in the market. That's better than spending the $1,000, right? Because not only did you keep that $1,000, you added to it. Okay. If you haven't noticed, most banks aren't paying any kind of interest anymore. Most banks are paying less than 1% interest, and some aren't even paying that. I know that some are paying 0.5% interest every month. They're just not paying interest anymore. So you need to put your money somewhere where it can grow some. And one great way for it to grow is in the stock market, right? And you don't need to have any sort of specialized knowledge to invest in the stock market. Obviously, there's tricks of the trade that you can learn. And, there's some people like Chris Johnson and Gerald Peters who, they sell courses and sell products that help you trade on the stock market better. And, I've actually put those links in the description box so you can check those out for yourself. But you don't need specialized knowledge to, succeed in the stock market. You could just invest in index funds, right? You can put your money in an index fund and, year after year, over the course of 5 to 10 to 15 years, you're going to come out ahead, certainly versus not investing that money at all. And I know a lot of people say, well, the stock market goes up and down and they have crashes and everything else. And that's true. That's very true. And I'm certainly not saying that it's always going to go up, but historically what we've seen is that stock prices go up over the course of 10 years. Like every 10 years, if you just invest the same amount of money, you're going to have more money at the end of those 10 years than someone who didn't invest. If that person put that money underneath their bed or in their backyard, you're going to have more money than that person that did that, right? In almost every case. So let's say you invest in the stock market, that's great, but that's just one. That's just one venture, right? Maybe you have a side hustle. Maybe there's something that you do very well. Maybe you can power wash, you can cut grass. Maybe you know how to design websites. Maybe you know how to do furniture. Maybe you know how to do social media or what have you. So that's another thing that you can invest in. How do I invest money in a side hustle? Well, you have to, you have to advertise. You have to buy ads, right? So you can invest in ads. You can invest in branding. You can invest in logos, right? You can invest in an assistant, someone who can take calls while you're at work, someone who can, send out emails on your behalf, things of that nature, right? So you can do that. Another one is, you can do courses. You can teach people to do what you know how to do. You may be really good at whatever it is you do, and you can teach someone else how to do it, right? You can do merch. You can sell merch. You can go on to Amazon and do e-commerce. I know people that have done that. You can make up your own products and sell them on Amazon, right? You can sell, like I said, you can sell courses. You can also sell PDFs. You can sell audios, right? So my point in all this is all those ideas that you've had over the last year or two that you've done nothing with, that you've done nothing to execute, how about you write all that down and then start executing on those things one by one? Just kind of get the ball rolling one by one. There's a woman by the name of Barbara Winter who wrote a book on basically working for yourself. It's a really simple book, and it really inspired me to become an entrepreneur and to do a side hustle. And she said, having a side hustle is kind of like spinning plates. If you've ever seen spinning plates, or maybe spinning basketballs, like, someone would spin a basketball on their finger, and then they would spin another basketball on their other hand, and then they pick up another basketball and they spin it on another finger, and pretty soon they're spinning like 8 or 9 basketballs. They're spinning one on their head, about 3 on one hand, 3 on the other hand, right? And you're wondering, like, how did they do all that? Well, they started by spinning one basketball, right? And once they got that spinning, once they got that going, then they went on to the next one. So that's what she broke down in her book. She said, get one side hustle going and making money, and then when that starts making money, then you pick up another thing and you start doing that. And then you pick up another thing and you start doing that. And you just start adding to everything that you're doing, and you're building momentum at the same time. So my point is, in 2021, if you're going into it, maybe you've lost your job, maybe, there's people who have been laid off at your job, and it kind of seems like the Grim Reaper is coming down your direction. There's no need to fret, but just start taking action on all those ideas that you've had, all those things you've been wanting to do, all those things you've been thinking about doing. Start doing them now. Like, don't wait, okay? Because we're moving into a new segment of our economy where it's going to be less in person and more virtual, right? We are pretty much a virtual economy now, but it's going to be even more virtual in the coming years because of COVID and because of just where we are in our society now. So you want to, make sure that you are positioned for that shift and getting your side hustle going, getting your business online. If you don't have a website, you need to do that like ASAP. You need to have a website, a working website where people can go and visit your business and find out more about what your business does. Is so vitally important. And I want to encourage you, that you can do this. You can absolutely make this happen. You do not have to sit flat-footed. You don't have to go through another recession in your life if you follow these rules. Invest in 8 ventures. Just spread yourself out, spread your ideas out so you're not depending on one income. And if the job lays you off, you're not, you can kind of have a glass of wine and say, hey, I can just start working more in my other 7 ventures because they're all making money. They're all doing really well. So hopefully that helps you. My name is Martin Williams. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud. Please like, comment, and share. And I'll talk to you soon. Don't forget to subscribe to the Under Construction Podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. For more information on Guided Expressions courses and products, go to guidedexpressions.com/products.